Yeah, you're welcome. I finally went out there and took a look at another Oliver Ekman-Larsson picture and used it in the thumbnail rather than reusing the same one that we cropped out a few months ago over and over and over again. But we're talking again today about Oliver Ekman-Larsson because there was an article published on the Arizona Central website earlier yesterday that I wanted to go over because it does have some comments that I do think are interesting. But Oliver Ekman-Larsson and his involvement with the Vancouver Canucks and the Boston Bruins. This is our angle here today. Why he chose those two teams as the teams that he would have waived his no-trade clause to, and his overall sentiment towards almost being traded in general. You already kind of know my personal opinions about that situation. I hated the fact that the Canucks were even trying to go for it, firstly, because it didn't really make sense on paper in terms of a money AAV standpoint. Secondly, because of the return, because the Arizona Coyotes were reportedly asking for Podkolzin or Demko back. And understandably so, because Oliver Ekman-Larsson is the captain of that team and he's a very good player, and when he's on, and at a time he was one of the better defenders in the entire NHL. So the asking price was fair, but the Vancouver Canucks were like, nah man, we really want to go after this. Let's try to twist the Arizona Coyotes' arm a little bit more here and try to get it. And thirdly, you know that my personal opinion is that the Vancouver Canucks doing this, trying to really maximize the return and the overall value of an Ekman-Larsson trade, ended up as the worst case scenario because it took the Canucks' attention away from the other players on the team who needed re-signing. Guys like Tanev and Stetcher and all that, yeah, they ended up going to free agency. They didn't have anything in store by the time they ended up signing their contracts because the Vancouver Canucks just put them on hold. That's my own personal opinions. You can talk to me in the comments below what you think. But we have ourselves this article over here on AZ Central talking about how Ekman-Larsson feels after almost getting traded to one of either the Vancouver Canucks or the Boston Bruins. The comments are kind of similar to what we spoke about before, but let's go over them once more. I am really glad that I'm a Coyote. That's why I signed my 8-year contract extension here. This is where I want to be, and this is where I want to win. I really believe that we can do that if we keep on doing the right things. Side note, not sure I'm super confident that the Coyotes are going to keep on doing that. But yeah, with everything going on in the world and this trade stuff on top of that, the offseason had been really tough. I think I learned a lot from it too, from that. The article then goes over the whole philosophical element of Oliver Ekman-Larsson being a cool guy and actually putting others before him, because we noted this a while ago, but Oliver Ekman-Larsson was only even in the market of being traded to Vancouver or Boston as kind of a favor for Arizona, because he said, yeah, I have this NMC, but if you guys really need to move me, no questions asked, I'll accept a trade to two of these teams, even though I want to stay with you guys here if you need to do it because it makes your team better and you're in a much worse place if I'm here rather than away. Here. Two teams, Vancouver, Boston, 2011 Finals rematch, eh? Now let's go over on to Spectors Hockey for their November 21st version of the article. It's from yesterday, where they go over an Arizona Coyotes insider interview. We're going to Spectors Hockey because the interview is actually behind a paywall, but these are the actual reasons as to why Ekman-Larsson had Boston and Vancouver specifically as his two desired teams. Craig Morgan reports Ekman-Larsson explained why he chose Boston and Vancouver. He said the Bruins had an interest in him before he signed his recent contract. He also spent a lot of time in Boston when he played in Portland, Maine, during the 2012-2013 lockout. His Swedish friends enjoyed playing and living in Vancouver, plus his agent lives there as well. He also believes the Canucks have a promising young team. So, two pretty sentimental reasons over there. Firstly, Boston, yes, it was indeed pretty close to Portland when Oliver Ekman-Larsson was indeed there playing his time in the AHL. It's actually kind of funny how close they are if you take a look at the Google Maps. It is very close. So, the fact is Ekman-Larsson is familiar with the area and plus he liked it. And then you had the fact that the Bruins were indeed going after him hard when he was in the position of getting a new contract. So, that in itself makes sense. Plus the fact that the Bruins are actually good, it is indeed something to take a look at. Furthermore, though, to that point, I do think it's kind of interesting taking a look at Boston specifically because that's a team that does need more left-handed defenseman depth. We know that with Chara, with Krug, the potential of those two guys both not coming back after already losing out on one of them, yeah, it is kind of tough, and we already saw a whole bunch of other stuff going on with the Boston Bruins and trade rumors with left-handed defensemen, Noah Hannafin, and all that stuff. So, Who knows if there even would have been something that the Bruins would have, I don't know, maybe needed to, very desperately gone over with when it comes to a trade. And bigger question there too, if the Boston Bruins knew that they wouldn't have been able to re-sign Torrey Krug, they could not have re-signed Alex Pietrangelo because he went over to Vegas, and that they would not have this easy time signing Chara instead, do you think they actually try a little bit harder in pursuing an Ekman-Larsson trade before Ekman-Larsson's personal deadline passed? Because that did indeed happen, where he set a deadline and said, if you're going to trade me, you're going to have to do it before this time. If it doesn't happen before then, nope, you're not trading me, sorry. My right to not waive is fully executed by then. So that certainly does intrigue my interest as well, whether or not the Bruins would have tried harder if they knew where they would be today, back when they were able to make the trade. But as for the Vancouver Canucks, yes, we've kind of noted this before, but actually, no, I don't think we have. It's just been common hearsay, I guess, amongst Vancouver fans, but the Sedins, Edler, yeah, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, man, these Swedes are all pretty tight, and the fact is, back when they were playing for different versions of Team Sweden, you always kind of knew that there was a pretty good camaraderie going on over there. And plus, probably one of the bigger things that I've noticed, and this is something that was actually brought up on our Canucks, it's not really something that I think is true, but I do think it does have somewhat of a lasting impression. Oliver Ekman-Larsson was there when the Sedins played their last home game. Remember that? Henrik to Daniel, Bo Horvat, I think it was 4-on-3 overtime with the power play, where Daniel scored in overtime to send the Canucks home and eventually back over to Edmonton to play game number 82. But the Vancouver Canucks' last home game with the Sedins ended with Oliver Ekman-Larsson there, and actually feeling up the environment. You know, he says that the team is indeed in a good spot going into the long-term future, and that is absolutely true. But the Vancouver fans, you know, not putting any words in his mouth, but I'm just saying, I think there is a good chance that the Vancouver fan base, probably more likely than not, did leave some very good impressions after that. And after the game, too, we saw the Vancouver Canucks shaking hands, or excuse me, it wasn't even the Canucks, it was just Henrik and Daniel, shaking hands with all the Coyotes. Brad Richardson was there, former teammates, of course. I remember when Brad Richardson was on this team, and contributing to what was one of the better bottom sixes in the entire league at the time. But you could see the emotion there, the sentimentality between him and the Sedins, and then Ekman-Larsson was there as well, showing a very similar level of sentimentalism. So I could totally understand why Ekman-Larsson was like, yeah, Vancouver, I'd like to come here. And for Boston, it does make sense as well. But at the end of the day, you know, he was in a position where ultimately, if it were up to him, he would have wanted to stay, which is what he eventually got, and it's the best case scenario for him in his own personal opinion. It's just, yeah, the Arizona Coyotes, man, good luck dealing with that cap hit. It's huge. Going on until 2027, man, I can't even believe the idea of the Vancouver Canucks even trying to take on something like that. Especially with the Coyotes not wanting to eat salary, too. That was reported as well, that they just wanted to get rid of the guy and get some prospects back. Like, no, buddy, you're not going to be able to do that. Ekman-Larsson's contract, I think on one of the recent Sportsnet articles or something like that, was noted as one of the worst contracts in the entire league. And even though he's a good player, my gosh, 8.25 till 2027 for a guy who was only able to get 30 points in 60 games last year? I know he's a defender, which means he's not really supposed to get points, but you signed Ekman-Larsson to get points. He was so good at that. Well, okay, that's the end of the gameplay here. We'll end this video off right now. Talk to me in the comments what you think about Oliver Ekman-Larsson's decision-making behind why he chose Vancouver and Boston. And talk to me what you think about the entire situation as a whole. I know we've covered it extensively on this channel, but there always are new layers to uncover, I guess you could say. But talk to me in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls99, and bye.